Pause.
Well, good morning, all. Liz calls what I'm going to say as a keynote, but that, trust me, that considerably overinflates its importance and what I'm going to say. But I'm very pleased to be here for a number of reasons. As Liz mentions, the three projects we're hearing from today were all applicants into the first of a kind 2020 competition, which Innovate UK delivers on behalf of the Department for Transport. It launched on the 13th of January last year. And I wonder if the 13th, unlucky 13, was a little bit of a prophecy of what was to come, because of course the challenges which the competition addressed didn't anticipate what was just around the corner in the form of the pandemic. But the themes were relevant to the railway and remain relevant. They were environmental sustainability, customer experience, optimized railway operations, and optimized and cost-effective maintenance. And the program continued for the 9 months during the pandemic, and the bulk of the teams contributing, including the three on the call today, in spite of all the challenges, managed to deliver successfully, and we're very pleased to see the teams continuing to develop their technology here today. The three teams are interesting as well. Two of the teams applied into the theme optimized railway operations, and Liz and the team at Esoterix applied into customer experience. And what is interesting is that all three focus on different parts of the railway system. So the Cogitare team focus on the vehicles themselves, understanding where they are and trying to make sure that services are where they are when they should be there, and basically keeping the network running to schedule to the customer's benefits. The Esoterix team focus on the customers themselves, understanding their behaviors, understanding why some services are bursting beyond capacity, why others are less full. And of course, that's developed particular relevance because of the social distancing requirements. And the Liverpool John Moore's team focus on that dreaded circumstance when things aren't perhaps going quite so well, and helping the staff to understand what's gone wrong with the network and what information customers need to help them to get back on track. So three parts of the railway operation all brought together through these webinars. And that in itself is particularly rewarding. It's not natural to see projects collaborating. Indeed, often projects see each other as bitter rivals, but it's fantastic to see three teams here offering a joint offering, where the sum of the parts adds up to more than the individual components. All three of these teams have delivered. The demonstrators are available probably in recordings if anyone wants to see them, and you'll hear more about the innovations today. What we're hoping now for the Department for Transport's benefit is that these will go forward to be live on the real railway. So if you see opportunities for these teams to help you with your challenges on the railways, I'd encourage you to please take on board what you're going to hear and to engage with the teams as best you can. There's no point in delivering innovation programs unless we ultimately deliver products to the railways. That's what Department for Transport is seeking. That's what Innovate UK is doing in supporting these programs. So I wish the teams good luck today. I hope what they're going to show is going to be of interest, and let's make a difference to the railways in future, both for the pandemic and for normal operations, when, fingers crossed, we get back to those as soon as possible. Thanks, Liz. I'm going to hand back to you, and I hope you have a good session.
Thank you very much, Kelvin. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Larry and Cogitare, who I believe is accompanied by GWR.
Thank you, Liz. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes,
Okay, so today...
yes, I can, Larry.
Oh, thank you. So today I'm going to talk about TrainServe and how it helps sort of run trains to time. So I'll be here as I'm Larry Faulkner from Cogitare, a sort of director who's here as a sort of works as a functional expert in terms of specifying the software, and I'm here with GWR, both Andy Friel, who's performance strategy manager, and also Mark Salisbury, who is performance analyst, to describe what William Shapps means for them and how this software helps. Okay, so first of all, I'll hand over to Andy to talk about the impact of the Great British Railway and William Shapps for sort of performance and Andy is Performance Strategy Manager for GWR. So over to you, Andy, to introduce yourself and to talk about this.
Okay, thanks, Larry, for the introduction, and good morning to everyone. So I'd ask me to say a few words on the Williams-Shapps review and current thinking relating to performance and GBR. So I'll start by saying the announcement is welcomed as it looks to address a system which over a number of years has become fragmented and has actually made decision making in the interests of customers more complicated than it needs to be. So at this stage in the review, and I'm sure many of you will have read the paper that was released a few weeks ago, at this stage it's too early to understand the real impact of the review in terms of the real details, but there are certainly some key themes emerging relating to performance. And I'm just going to pick on three of those themes to talk about, as I think they're quite helpful to set a bit of context as we move forward into the kind of project supporting and the workstream supporting the overall review. So firstly, performance is central to GBR and the ethos of the review. So if you look at other industries which manage systems of one theme or another, so be it energy networks, water networks, there's definitely a very strong focus on performance, and that's really comes through as incentives and penalties. So I think one area that is very focused, from this review is around performance and what that looks like in terms of reward and penalties in the industry. I've always had, the commercial element has always been quite key in rail, but I would certainly expect that to increase. It's also clear that Grant Shapps and the government are expecting to see a step change in this area, and that being performance. So I think it's a real good opportunity for all of us involved in performance. And the second theme is around collaboration and whole industry thinking. So if you've done any work with NPB recently, or RDG or any of the kind of central teams, steps have been underway for a while now to look at whole network performance, reactionary delay, other things that affect more than one region in the UK network. It's currently a challenge to look at whole industry performance, mainly due to the model in which we operate. So that's an area that I think is under quite a lot of scrutiny, but actually there's the first steps of change already kind of in motion there. So also as part of that, when you look at the new model, and certainly as a lot of you will be aware, train operators have been under EMAs or EMRAs, removing the revenue risk to operators. You might make some different decisions. So currently, if I look on the network that we operate, we might have 3-4 operators on a similar journey. And actually, if you don't have revenue risk, why would you have 4 separate operators running along the same piece of track? So there are certain themes that play into the into Shapps review. And the third and final bit that I wanted, was third theme really, is around efficiency. So there's a definite efficiency theme running through the Grant Shapps review, and it's not something that we should shy away from. I think often people relate efficiency to job cuts, but in reality, it's about how we do things better, and that can be looking at current outputs for less cost. It's also looking at more outputs for the same cost. So this is where I think, as the kind of innovation community and anybody involved in performance and the kind of technical aspects of it, I think this is where we have a real good opportunity to support decision making, innovation, and also linking back into collaboration. How we do things slightly better, supported by data. So overall, what's also clear is that the theme set out in the review is that we have a number of problem statements, but it's really down to the industry to develop the solutions. So I personally see this as an unprecedented opportunity to shape the future, and I think the the review has done a good job in highlighting and kicking over some of the stones that need to be kicked over. But certainly from the work streams that I've involved in, on the back of the announcement, there's a real feeling that this is an unprecedented opportunity to improve the things where there is opportunity. So a lot of work is already underway, but I think system and data innovation and connectivity of regional models and analysis is key to shaping the future of train performance. I also think the agility to support changing operating models and stakeholders will help to answer some of the questions that are being asked. And this will undoubtedly help shape the answer of what a performance-focused UK rail network will look like in the future. So, Larry, that's a bit of an overview from me. I mean, I'm happy to take questions, just wary of time on the agenda.
Oh, no, thank you very much, Andy. Perhaps we'll leave questions to the end, just to make sure that we have got enough time. But thank you for that very useful overview from the industry and from the inside into what William Schatz means. So now we're going to kick off with a very quick poll for our audience. So you should be getting an opportunity to answer these questions. So number one, on busy areas of the railway and junctions, when do you think a train can start delaying other trains? Yeah, do you think it's after 30 seconds, 60 seconds, or 2 to 3 minutes? So if you can all submit your answers, yeah, and we'll move on to the next question. This is just to see what the audience sort of feel, is what is the industry threshold for investigating delays? Yeah, is it 60 seconds, 120 seconds, or 180 seconds? Yeah. And then the final question is for you as a passenger, when you're traveling, after what delay do you feel your train was late? Is it after a very short delay, after 2 minutes, after 5 minutes, or 10 or more minutes? And we'll see the answer to these questions at the end of this session. Okay, so now on to talk to you about TrainServe. And TrainServe helps understand small delays and their knock-on impacts to other trains, and also helps optimize rail systems and operations for passengers, from looking for where the infrastructure needs tweaks to improve, through to where can we improve the timetable, or how can we improve driving styles, for example. It helps the industry work together to improve. So just to give you a very high-level overview, what is it that we're talking about? It's an application which converts data into easy-to-use information and insights. It's all about democratizing data and making it available to people to improve efficiency. And that helps ops and planning do more for less. By the more, we mean a lot more analysis to understand and improve performance and timetables, but also there's a driver element to help improve safety for both passengers and freight. And to do all that, but with less staff time, and also save traction energy if we want, since there's an inbuilt sort of desktop DAS within the system. So it's all about getting the best possible railway for our customers at the sort of least cost. So it's a cloud-based app, and at a minimum we feed in a sort of an infrastructure model, and we get signaling feeds and timetable feeds that are real time. And with that, that gives us loads of information for planning and performance teams. And GWR have got this sort of do minimum version of TrainServe, which works just with these feeds, which we get for all trains available across the country, relatively quick setup because a lot of it is automated. And then we have optional feeds. We can add in GPS, or even better, the train black box, the OTMR, which then gives us valuable information for the driving team to start automatically assessing how drivers are doing and how they're following the driver policies. We can also add passengers, which then gives better information for planning and performance teams, because we can start measuring delays in terms of what it means for passengers. and also starts helping the station and control teams. So it's all about empowering people with the knowledge of data. But why don't I give you very quickly, show you what we're talking about, and this will be a sort of a real flash tour just to give you a flavor. Like here, I'm just looking at a train graph to see this morning's performance in between Reading and Paddington, the dotted line being the timetable time and the solid line being the actual time of trains. And what we can see is that nearly all trains are running on time or slightly early this morning, because the solid line is below the dotted line, which means the trains are running early. But I can literally I can say, okay, well, let's look at the performance over the last month. So I just change the dates, and then I will then recalculate a month's worth of data. So you see that's incredibly fast. In about 3 seconds, we've evaluated a month's worth of data, and I'm now showing you the 80th percentile, or the 4th train out of 5 in terms of lateness. And we can straight away see that some trains are regularly running late. So this is all about, quickly see where the problem areas are, and this could take weeks, months of analysis doing manually to find this out. Whereas here you've got technology that lets you do it in seconds. And similarly for runtimes, here I've just chosen LNER and about a month's worth of data, and I'm just doing an analysis of runtimes in relation to the timetable for Thameslink. And this straight away tells me, okay, when I'm looking at actual versus timetable, Holloway to Finsbury Park is the worst, with half of trains taking a good 40 seconds more, or literally 50%, almost 50% longer than the timetable time. I can then go straight in and see my sort of distributions of run times between trains. I can then investigate individual services. Each of these bars is one service, with the red dot being the actual and the box being the observed. And I can even then find out, why was this train incredibly late on this day, and go into the scatter plot and see actually on which day it was. And then this is the functionality that GWR have, which is a do minimum. But I've also got, if I've got GPS or OTMR, I can dig down and see the speed distance traces and how trains were driven in relation to the infrastructure. If I've got passenger data, I can start measuring performance in terms of excess journey time, the TfL principle. If you want to put the passengers first, measure not only your train timeliness, but how late people are arriving at their destination. So that's what this graph does. But I won't go into detail, because this really is a sort of a flash tour. If you want to see more, do give me a shout, and I'll be very happy to take you through it. Or all the automated driver competence functionality, where here I'm automatically assessing every driver all of the time, to see where there are problems. Like here I can see there are a red notification for the driver policy not being followed because the driver was speeding. I click on it, and straight away I can see the context. Okay, 20-mile-an-hour speed limit coming out of Limehouse, and the driver forgot about the back of his train when accelerating. If that is a pair of points, you don't want the back of your train going over the points of 50% greater than the speed limit, for example. But that really is a flash tour. With that, I will hand over to Mark Salisbury, who will tell us a bit about how GWR are using this functionality.
Okay, great. Thanks, Larry. As Larry said, my name is Mark Salisbury, and I'm part of the performance analysis team at GWR. The graph view, the train graph view, we find that really useful for looking at both the real-time and the historical average performance. The historical view is great for finding out trains or junctions that are subject to recurring performance problems. And an example that we've got, and we've only got a small section of our route in train serve at the moment, is around Heathrow Airport Junction, and seeing the interactions from the trains coming off from Heathrow Airport onto the Great Western Main Line is really highlighted, some services where those interactions are a bit close. And although there are other tools that are available to do that, we found TrainServe to be fast, powerful, and flexible, and able to handle that big data. As Larry's just proved, you can simply change the date range, and within seconds you've got the updated charts. The live train graph view is also really useful to seeing the impact of when we launch new timetables or tweaks to timetables, so we can see those results in real time. Normally we'd have to wait for that data. The run times and dwells charts, we've used those, and we've worked with TrainServe to quickly tell us the average dwell and run times for a given section, without the need for any manual calculations. It's just so quick and so easy to see, and it's really a very informative view. And that ranked list of poor performing sections is really valuable. It allows us to focus on the area without having to go looking for where the problems are. And that functionality, that ranked functionality, was designed very much in conjunction with ourselves, because we wanted to have that degree of insight. We also use TrainServe to sort of debunk various myths related to performance and train times, because we've got the data of any TOC that's running over those over our network on the section we've got. We're able to see how we're performing against other TOCs, whereas normally we'd only have our own data. So it allows us to come to our conclusions really, really quickly. So that's a really quick overview of how we've used it. There's a lot more that we have used in there, but there's an awful lot more that we'd like to use once we get the functionality.
Oh, thank you very much, Mark, for that overview, because it's always much better to hear from the horse's mouth what something is like. And GWR are our sort of lead users, and it's been great working with GWR over a lot of the functionality, because it's by working with users who think out of the box that you deliver something that's useful. And as we are it is the railway industry, so any innovation and technology is incredibly slow to sort of take off. But there is quite a bit of interest. We're just kicking off another user trial with Eastern Route, for example, and then a number of routes and operators are also looking at how they might implement this. And also some operators are very interested in all that automated driver competence side of things, where you can continue to assess drivers and have a whole system approach with planning, performance and driving teams working together to improve performance, but also to improve safety and spot those accidents and those risks before they materialize, such as drivers who might be prone to speeding, or areas of the railway where a lot of speeding occurs, or close events with hard braking. So I hope this gives you a flavour of how you can harness data and tech to build back better and to be more efficient. I think it was as one user told us, I'm used to working with a needle and thread. This is like giving me a sewing machine, which I thought was quite a good analogy. And if you do want to find out more, then Mark has very kindly said, any questions from rail organisation or user perspective, you're welcome to contact Mark. His contact details are here. And also, if you want to find, if you want a demonstration or a chat on the supplier side or technical, then do give me a shout. My contact details are there. And I'd like to thank Mark and Andy once again for your very interesting perspective from the operator side. And with that, I'll hand back to Liz.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Mark. And thank you, Andrew. Right, I'm not going to say much now. I'm just going to hand over to Tan, who with Liverpool John Moores University will be discussing how to make the railways easier to use.
Thank you very much, Liz. So just bear with me a moment. I hope you can see my screen. Yeah, so look, I can see a few notes, so hopefully it's good. So hello everyone, and I'm Thanh, a professor from Liverpool John Moores University. And today I would like to update you with some findings and lessons learned from our trial with Zero on our IRIS project funded by the Department for Transport via the First of a Kind program delivered by the Innovate UK. And I also would like to discuss with you about how we can make railway, especially the stations, easier to use for passengers and staff. So we are hoping that some colleges from Zero, our partner, will join us later today to talk about how they have been using IRIS and how IRIS has helped them to deal with day-to-day operations. At the moment, they have just had some very urgent and unexpected situation that they have to deal with. So they are temporarily away. So we hope they will be able to join us in time to share with us their experience. But if not, our colleagues from Zero have already sent us some statements. And if they cannot be here, then my colleague, Alan Payden, will read out the statement on Zero's behalf after the presentation. So before we go into the details, please just allow me to set the scene with 2 poll questions, which basically show us examples of challenges on making the railway easier to use and accessible to all. So the first one that you see here is actually what I have experienced multiple times. To be honest, I'm quite forgetful. I'm a rail user, a regular rail commuter, so I'm actually quite forgetful. And due to that, I actually have left my bag on the train more than once, especially when I have to have some long overseas shift and then come back too tired and basically just left the bag on the train. So this really is the situation that I have experienced. So you assume that you put yourself in my heart and left the bag on the train and you spoke to station staff. So there are a number of different kind of responses that station staff could give you. So which of the following would give you the most assurance and satisfactions? The first one, they communicated directly to the train staff as well as station staff and assure me that the bag would be located and left for me at the next staff station. Or they would just give me a number that I can call to. They just tell me that I can find the right contact on the train operating company's website. Or they could just tell me that nothing they could do because rightfully I'm responsible for my own luggage. So let us give just about half a minute for us to complete this poll. And I will review the poll results at the end of the presentation to reflect what we are going to discuss, if that's okay. Okay, that's good. Thank you for your input. So the poll will be reviewed at the end of my presentation, as I say. So now let us move to the next poll. So in this poll, I would like us to put ourselves in the shoes of a train operating company. So at the train operating company, you have passengers who need assistance turning up at stations, including the mostly, say, unstaffed stations, without any advance notice. And obviously, they need assistance, and we would want to give them assistance. However, this unfortunately has caused significant delays and inconvenience for the passengers, not only the passenger with assistance, because he or she would have to wait for also other passengers on the train as well. So what would you like to do in this situation? So the first option is basically there's nothing I can do. Passengers are encouraged to do spontaneously travel. So they just turn up and go if that service is available. Or we could just tell the passengers and insist to the passengers that they would need to request for assistance in advance before they actually arrive at the station. Or we could give that passenger a facility at the station to send assistance request directly and immediately to the onboard conductor or guard. Or another option could be just to, if we have the resource, send staff to all of the unstaffed stations so that we will always have someone there to help the passengers. So again, I have seen a lot of responses already. Thank you very much. So let us give us another 30 seconds and then we will move to the presentation. Thanks, that's wonderful. Again, thank you very much for your input, and we will find out the result at the end. So these two polls lead us very nicely to the main topic that I would like to discuss with you, and that is real-time information provision and passenger assist at stations. Real-time passenger assist at stations. So the motivation for our project actually is aligned with William Sharp's plan. And if you have read the William Sharp plan, it emphasizes on, among other things, better information provision and better accessibility. And in response to the Williams Rail Review, the Office for Rail and Road actually pointing out that the current challenges in industry would be how they can improve information provision to passengers at stations, as well as how to improve accessibility. This really is a motivation for the presentation today, as well as the motivation for us to develop IRIS and the other tools. So the challenges highlighted in the ORR's Fly to Williams Rail Review was there, I think, because a number of technical challenges, such as the lack of a real-time communication tool that allows two-way or multiple-way between station staff and back office. That could cause delays in information provision to passengers, because when there is disruptions in many stations, the staff would have to phone back to the, say, control room or back office and tell them about the disruptions. So there is no easy way for all those staff to communicate to the back office. It's normally they have to rely on phone radios, etc. And there are also a lack of data integration, especially real-time data integration, and the lack of knowledge about real-time cloud information as well. And sometimes, as pointed out by surveys from Transport Focus, sometimes passengers, the staff we wanted to can know more than the station staff. They have more information to have access to different apps and websites that can provide them with more information than station staff. And also another challenge is, so in terms of accessibility, that although the aspiration of the industry is accessibility for all, and it means that disabled passengers should be able to just turn up to the station and go without having to book a system in advance. In reality, in many stations, especially the unstaffed ones, this is either infeasible or it would cause a lot of issues for both the train company and passengers, like the example we have just looked at in the poll. So how do we think this challenge can be resolved? How we can put passengers first? We believe that facilitating real-time information and communication to both staff and passengers could be an answer. This slide here just shows an example of how we have been trying to harness real-time information and real-time communication to help the rail industry, working in partnership with mostly Zero, but also the ISSB and other organizations. On the left here is a system called React to Delays, a machine learning and optimization system to predict reaction to delays in real time, and also suggest optimal strategies to deal with it. And down below in the bottom left here is Smart Green Sensor. It is our network of passenger count, traffic weather, movement, traffic sensor, and air quality sensor, and they can provide information in real time. So all this information, together with the other real-time information from industry servers, such as Darwin and Network Rail Data Feed, can be fed to a new type of station screens called COIS, which thankfully was funded again by the First of a Kind program, and an app for portable devices called IRIS, which was also funded by the First of a Kind program. So empowered with real-time data and communication engines, systems like COIS and IRIS would allow better information provision to passengers and improve communication between staff, as well as communication between frontline staff and passengers. Just like to think to like IRIS, the one in the middle here, could help both passengers and train companies to address issues raised in the previous two polls. So let's go into a bit more details. So what is IRIS and what does it do exactly in case you didn't attend the first workshop? So in a nutshell, IRIS is a communication and information system that can put the information at the fingertips of staff. and allows them to view and communicate all the information on just one single screen on their handheld device. But uniquely, it is also a tool that allows passengers to communicate and put forward assistance requests directly and immediately to train and station staff at very short notice. So this really is to help passengers in need of assistance to have the opportunity to travel spontaneously without having to look for assistance in advance. So this picture really is an evolution of Iris from the last time that we presented you in the workshop. So now please allow me to break down the feature of Iris into a bit more details. I'm not going into too much detail, I'm just going very quickly. So the first one here really is just what I mentioned about. So it integrates all information currently available from our sensor as well, from industry server in one single screen in real time to staff. And there has been a lot of complaints, as you know, about frontline staff not being able to provide passengers with hand information. So really, the motivation here is that we would like to change that. And secondly, here is a communication engine, and this really is a key feature of Iris. So it brings that digital two-way or multi-way communications to frontline staff in real time. So for the first time, we think staff will be able to communicate or even broadcast to control rooms, to other stations, other staff, or even other train operating companies digitally using messages or voice messages or even photos, and they will all be recorded. And as mentioned before, we also developed a special version of Iris that allows passengers to communicate to the staff as well directly. We believe will allow train operating companies to deal with passenger requests in a timely manner. So the third one, Wiki's guideline standard really is that it displays train movements that are relevant to the platform or station where the staff or passengers is. And it also pinpoints exactly where the train is on the journey as well. So we think, the train location, it is quite useful based on the feedback that we got from the staff. I will show you later. And the fourth one here is Iris allow rail staff to raise and communicate and manage incidents as well, digitally and effortlessly. And incidents are automatically filtered and linked to journeys, so it saves them from being able to sort out the incident and try to link them manually. This can be done automatically. Now, the one in the bottom here is an assistance board, and that is the one that allows staff to assist passengers better. The staff can request or book assistance. They can also accept or decline an assistance request. And they can be alerted of incoming assistance so they will not forget. And all of this can be done in real time, assisted by the communication system. They can also do the communication messaging, voice messages, etc. as well to assist the process of assisting passengers. And as mentioned before, there's a special version of Iris that allows passengers to book assistance at very short notice when they turn up at the station. So, and again, using the same engines of Iris. And all of the above that I mentioned, really, they can be recorded digitally, and thus they can be tracked, and they can be traced and analyzed for further investigation and improvement. And we also provide real-time passenger counts as a platform, of course, that need to be installed. And we also provide statistics on the historical passenger count data. Now we learned that it's quite useful for the train operating companies, especially now that restrictions are being lifted. And the next one is we also have specifically designed Iris with different color schemes and symbols and different interfaces to support staff with accessibility issues. And also staff can control how they want to see the interface as well. And the rail partner can also customize and add new features system like the eyewitness and ticketless features from Mersey Rail. And finally, we have an always on feature on Iris. And that is really to make sure that even if some of the industry servers like Darwin or Network Rail is down, the system will still be able to provide information to staff and passengers. That's thanks to the backup data sources that we have got. So I think the next one is, I'm not going into detail, it's just a few screenshots. This is just what the staff would see on their screen when there is an assistance request coming up, and they can accept, they can decline. And if they forgot about it, there will always be a reminder when the assistance is coming as well. This is another screenshot of the real-time passenger count we got from the platform the station. Now, if you would like to try some of these features of Iris, you can actually do it yourself. Just go into the product website here, and the link here is web.lgw-iris.co.uk. And there you can try out the interactive interface of Iris to test some of the features. And on the website, you can also contact us and we can arrange a more detailed demo for you, the bespoke demo. So the next part is about the feedback, the lessons we learned from the trial. And we started the trials on Merge Network since mid-January. So to understand the trial, probably it would be good to for me, if you allow me to show, this is the map of the Merge network. So initially we started with this busy section from Liverpool Centre, which is Liverpool's busy station, to Hunts Cross, and here is Liverpool Subway. It is the Liverpool multimodal gateway. It has access to air, buses, rail. So it's quite important to these two hubs and a few stations in between. But since then, we are happy to expand it, the trial also to other stations across this line. Is the Northern Line from Southport to Hunts Cross. We have got some detailed feedback from the staff on this one. So the system can work on staff device, any phone device, or it can work on tablets like this. This is just a material staff working with the tablet on it, with Iris on it. So to understand how Iris has helped Merge-Rail and its passengers, we have created a survey for Merge-Rail staff to complete toward the end of the trial. At that time, it was deemed unsafe for us to do face-to-face meeting. So we asked for feedbacks from frontline staff who used Iris on any of the stations on the trial route. We asked them to provide completely honest feedback so that we could improve the system. And to maintain impartiality, we actually did not ask the management and the technical staff who have been working with us to shape the user interface and the feature of Iris, since there could be unconscious bias in their feedback. So this is what we have got. So overall satisfaction is about 8 over 10 by frontline staff. We did have some technical difficulty with the Wi-Fi signal. So the system could only work, as you know, it's a digital system. It could only work when it can connect to the internet. And it could be done either through mobile signal or Wi-Fi. And we tested them in the underground station where Wi-Fi signal was not very good. And so we did have some issue with that, but it's really beyond our control. And it did impact the score a little bit. However, I think we still have some pretty good score from frontline staff of Merge-Rail. And we also asked them what are the features that they find most useful. And 80% of them indicated it would be the incident and the information board. We gave them the real-time information and also the real-time detail about incidents, which they could not find from the industry server. And the feature to raise incidents to other stations as our assistant bot also was quite popular as well, 60%. Raising information relating to journeys, 40%, and none of them actually did not like any feature, which is good. So we also
sorry to interrupt you. I'm just slightly conscious of time.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I'm really there. Just near the end now. So we also asked them whether they think Iris has helped them to help customers. So I think 76% strongly agree on that, and 33% neutral. None of them disagree. We think it's positive as well. There are some detailed feedback from the staff regarding how Iris helps them on day-to-day. I'm not going into detail, but basically it's just focused on 2 areas. One is real-time information and incident messages. They appreciate it because they are in very quick and very clear and more detailed than what they got from CIS grid as well as their internal system. And secondly, is passenger assistance. They see the potential service. And as I mentioned, I think one of the drawbacks really is that the device needs to be connected. So they did mention about that. When the device is not connected, obviously, it would not be able to help them. There's some feedback from the industry thing. Hopefully, if our Merge-Rail colleagues are able to join us, they are going to read that out in detail. I'm not going to go into detail. So really just tell you very briefly regarding the next step. So we're planning for a bigger rollout on Material networks. We are in discussion with Material on that. And we are also in having a discussion to have a pilot on a very long route with a major train operating company to support turn up and go passengers. That's the feature I mentioned to you about, where allow passengers to actually raise assistance requests when they turn up at the station. In preparation for this. And I think that's it really. So, Alan, I just wonder if you could, before we finish this, if you could just show the poll results.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Should we do those all at
Should
the
we do
end?
at the end? Yeah, because
Oh, maybe yeah. Let's do it in the
only
end.
got
Yeah,
a few
just
minutes.
to say so. Yeah. Okay. So I think if you so here's our contact. So if you have any questions, so please just feel free to ask at the end of this session, or just drop us an email. And I would like to take this opportunity to again, thanks firstly to the technical team in Liverpool John Moores University, to all of our colleagues in Material who have been very helpful and working with us very closely, and also to the Innovative Guide for supporting us throughout all the way. Also to our colleagues from Esoterix and Cogitare as well, working with us to organize this webinar. And that's all from me. Thank you. And I would like to hand over to Liz.
Thank you, Tan. Fantastic. Right, I'm going to go back to presentation. I'm actually going to hand straight over to Katharina Berger, who is from the University of Bristol, and they've been doing some research that we collaborated on passenger attitudes to crowding. Over to you, Katharina.
Thanks, Liz. So I'll just go straight into the study. We are looking at people's behavior. And the question really was, how can we identify who's most likely to switch to a less crowded train? And the background is, of course, that demand on public transport systems was growing before COVID, is likely going to pick up again. Definitely, we're seeing this in other parts of the world as well. And of course, physical expansion of capacity is a slow process. And the data from Esoterix suggested that there is spare capacity in trains that are sometimes only leaving 10 minutes apart, 10 minutes earlier or later, to the same destination, same speed. So there wasn't really a rational explanation, I'd say, why people wouldn't choose those trains if it's just a 10-minute difference. Next slide, please. So we designed a behavioral study that is composed of 3 parts. So the first question was, well, do people really care about crowdedness? Because the first explanation why they don't switch to that less crowded train might have been that they don't really care. And we assessed this with pictorial images of different levels of crowdedness and a non-verbal pictorial scale that's quite long established in experimental psychology, where we measured valence and arousal in relation to these images. And the second thing we hypothesized is, well, we know that train choice behavior, and we focused on commuters here, is really a very habitual process. So perhaps there are some constraints that's stopping people from switching, even though it's just a very so intra-peak switching behavior that we were interested in. So we tried to understand with an experimental choice task there, where we gave them their default departure choice and trains leaving 30, 20, and 10 minutes earlier, both to work and from work, different options. So what this does is really, it gives them full awareness of crowdedness levels. So the choice tasks works on the assumption that they have this information, and it asks the question, would they then switch? So that's how we measured the habitual behavior there. And finally, we also asked information questions around their information searching behavior, because it's very nice to have real-time crowdedness information, but it's no good if people don't check their phones, if they don't take up that information. So we asked questions around how often would they check their phones before going to work and after work? Do they currently use the app? Do they use other modes of accessing crowdedness information? And of course, all of these 3 things, we wanted to put them together into then a regression model. Next slide, please. So we have a sample of 699 usable responses from across the UK. We were very lucky in having respondents from most major cities as well as London. And what we found in the first instance is that people are highly sensitive to crowding. So what you can see there is the respondents, when we show them these images of empty trains, they all clearly show that this is a satisfying, pleasing environment, and as opposed to a crowdedness crowded experience to the right. And we showed them 10 different images, 2 of each kind, and we validated the images against their perception as well with the pictorial scale. What we do find is this high ceiling effect. So the key finding from this is that there isn't much variation. People are highly sensitive to crowding. This corresponds with findings we know from the literature that there's a public health issue, that crowding causes stress. So it's something that needs to be addressed. Yeah, next slide, please. So the other, the slide that's missing in the middle, because we cut out some slides, is about the response to the pictorial images, but this is perhaps more interesting to you. So how do they currently access information about train crowdedness? So half of them said they don't. So in principle, if we assume that this is something they might act upon, it's relevant information to provide, but I'll go into this in a bit more detail later. The others that do have access to train crowdedness information do it mostly via an app. We have a sample that is relatively, it's young professionals mostly. So the age range is between 21 and mostly between 40. We haven't got many people above 50 in the sample. So it's skewed towards younger people. And we also have more females than males responding. But otherwise, it's commuters only, who travel on crowded or very crowded trains to work. So that's the sample that we have here. And I think it's quite interesting to see that there is a way of communicating to them. 88% said that they would check their phones very frequently. So there are questions around how do you get them to then act on that information. So next slide, please. So what you don't see here, because we're still analyzing the data, the question is who is most susceptible to this kind of information? And what we find is when we analyze the freedoms from constraints, that is really the most important effect. So at the moment, the higher your freedom from constraints is, and we measure this, for example, by having to turn up to work at a certain time or having childcare responsibilities and therefore having to leave at a certain time. This goes, we can find that, well, the fewer constraints people have, the more likely they are to switch up to a certain degree. There is a group of people who, in principle, could switch, and they have flexibility to work and from work, but they don't act upon it. So this is the group of people that is really most interesting, because if we could target these people who in theory could switch, but perhaps are not incentivized sufficiently to switch, then we have the potential to fill these perhaps less crowded trains. Now, of course, there is a literature around this, which says, for example, they value sleeping half an hour longer than getting up half an hour earlier and taking an empty tube carriage to work, for example. But this is a matter of then targeting these people with the right incentives. And this is where we're focusing future research on. So hopefully that's our contribution to making trains run on time. Thanks, Liz. You're on mute, Liz, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kat. And if anyone wants to know more about that, then please do get in touch with either myself or with Katharina. So following on from Katharina's work, we were, as part of our First of a Kind in Rail project, looking at how busy will trains be and creating predictions into the future. We've worked principally with Southeastern, but we also did a small trial with Avanti. And what we found on their service, where we worked on 3 different services, we were able to get accurate predictions in current times, where we've got great volatility in passenger numbers, where we were significantly better in some cases than their current prediction methods. On average, around 50% of the time, we were within 20% of actual loadings. And these are relatively low loadings as well. So when you get, a few extra passengers, that makes percentage-wise, it's significant. So we were very pleased with those results. The predictors are using the previous loadings as a regressor, but also seat reservations. The day type, so is it a bank holiday, a weekday, a weekend, and seasonality, things like bank holidays. I might have said that already, but school holidays is what I mean. So that's what we were doing with Avanti. With Southeastern, to update you on that work, if you came to our presentation in March, you may remember this, and if you didn't, we set up a personalized prompt service. This is using passengers who are traveling with smart cards, and then we use that information to understand what journeys they're making. So by checking the taps and the Darwin feeds, etc., we understand that, for example, in this case, George travelled on the 742 from Dartford. And then if that train is busy and it looks like it's going to continue to be busy over the coming week, we send that passenger a personalised message. And that message might say, you could try this alternative train if there is a train that is within a certain parameter that is not likely to be busy. Or we could say, why don't you check the Seat Finder website? And it provides a link through to that. And Seat Finder is the service that sits on the Southeastern on their website, and it has services and predictions based on last values for how busy services are. What we found from that trial, and it is early days and passenger numbers remain relatively low, but what we find from that trial is that actually just over a third of passengers are less likely to use the busy service in the week after they've received a message than the week leading up to when they received a message. So very encouraging results on that. The grey section represents no change in travel. So there are some people who are regularly catching the same train and feedbacks on via the feedback mechanism within the service states that these are, I have to get to work at a certain time, and that's why I'm using this service. And finally, I wanted to introduce something that we didn't speak about in March. We were well, we mentioned that we'd won the award. We won some money from the Department for Transport under the TTRIG, which is the Transport Technology Research and Innovation Grant, to look at what would be the impact of introducing real-time information into predictions for how busy the train will be further down the line. So that's using how busy the train is now to tell you how busy the train will be 3 or 4 stations on. And what we found was, and it's not necessarily surprising, but is borne out in this data, that actually even when you have high variability and unseen spikes, real-time information can make an enormous difference in the accuracy of your predictions. So on this plot here, we see that this section on the left, ahead of the dotted line, is the training period, and on the right is the actual period, and we can see some previously unseen spikes in demand, where the dots are the actuals, but predictions are getting very close. The different colours represent the amount of data, the number of stations for which we're providing information to the model, and actually we see that just one station is enough to actually dramatically improve the quality of those predictions. So that's a little insight into the future, where we're using both historical data, the contextual information of weather and weather and day type, etc., but also loadings on the day. So we are coming up to 11. We're at 11. Crikey, time has flown. Just remains for me to say thank you very much to Southeastern for their ongoing collaboration. Fantastic to be involved with them. Thank you to Avanti for also for their collaboration with us and for allowing us to share that data today. To Innovate UK, Development Transport, and of course our co-hosts. I'm going to, shall I hand back to you, Alan, with regard to the response on the polls? And I don't know if any questions have come in, if there's anything for us to respond to.
Haven't seen any questions as a response to the polls. Maybe pull them up. Oh, we need to end that poll.
Oh, that's our poll. I forgot that.
No, sorry. Do you want to do yours?
we need to do your poll first.
Yes, very quickly. So we are interested in our audience as travellers, as individuals. There's a lot of talk at the moment about Transport for London and how they are enforcing masks. And we wondered how you as individuals feel. So are you worried about transmission of COVID in crowded places? If you are, yes, I'm cautious and I'm upset by other people not wearing masks. I'm only slightly worried about it. It's time to get back to normal. Or I'm somewhere in the middle. I prefer to keep the time I spend in crowded places to a minimum. So if you could respond on that one, and then we've got one more and then we can do the answers.
I think everyone's answered. Esoterix 2.
Okay, so this is building on some of the work Katerina did. You're planning to travel to London by train for business next week from wherever you are. Would you select a service that is quick and will get you to your destination at the right time, but is likely to be busy? I've put it 85% there. Or one that costs less and is likely to be 40% busy, so much more space, but will arrive an hour earlier than you need to. Which would you select?
I think that's everyone now. Okay, so you can't see the results here, can you? Share results, there we go. Let's go, should we go from the very start, question 1?
Let's do it.
Okay, Cogitare, Larry, share results, how these look. Is Larry there?
Larry, you're on mute. What was your response to be on this one?
Yes, I would agree that after 30 seconds, you start having delays and they then magnify onto other trains. Yeah, so what can start as a 30-second delay can lead to a much greater delay. Any thoughts on that, Andy? Andy Friel?
Yeah, so my thoughts are.
Go back to that one, sorry.
My thoughts are very much aligned to what you said.
Wrong one.
I think 30 seconds. It does depend very much on location, and you know, if we look at our route, if you had a 30-second delay around Heathrow Airport Junction, you know, that can import delays across multiple operators for the rest of the day. So so very much so. It's probably different on other parts of the network. So you know, I think that's probably more topical to, you know, to hotspot locations.
Okay, say the next one.
Thank you, Andy.
Cogitare 2.
Oh, okay. It looks as if we've got a knowledgeable audience, since I believe, let me know if I'm wrong, Andy, but it's 3 minutes or 180 seconds is the threshold for investigating delays on the railway.
I think that's a common one. I think some operators do look at 120. So I think it varies by operator, but I think 180 is probably standard. I might be corrected.
Thank you. And then there's the last question. What do passengers feel? And Andy, I'll leave you to comment on this. What do you feel, and how do you think it compares to your experience and GWR's experience?
I mean, again, it can vary by journey type. If your journey is only 5 or 10 minutes, then you're going to notice a 5-minute difference. I think when you look across all routes and all operators, I think 5 minutes is mostly manageable. You know, if you're commuting to work and you need to be there by a certain time, for example, maybe longer distance, there's a bit more leeway. But I would agree from an operator perspective, 5 minutes is probably fair. Albeit we very much target a lot lower numbers than that. So on time, which is time to 1 and time to 3 are really key metrics for us as an industry.
Yeah. No, which is a good point, because you know, a train that's 1 minute late, as we were saying earlier at a junction, can then end up in other trains later on being 5 minutes. Yep, 5 minutes late. Excellent. Well, no, thank you very much for that, Andy.
Okay, this is
Alan, do you want to
Iris. Yeah, Iris.
Okay, so this is our poll. So 80. So the question about leaving the back of the train, and 88% of the audience would prefer the staff to communicate with the train staff, or would think that that would be the best. The most accurate response would be the staff would communicate directly with the train staff and station staff, and I'm sure passengers at the back would be located and would be left for passengers to pick up at the next station. 12% would be happy with if they can give us a number that we can call to. And none of us chose the other two options. So, so the audience, you really share the same thought as myself. And, you know, I was in that situation before, so I think it would be a lot more reassuring to know that the staff can actually have that kind of communication to the people on the train to make sure that, you know, they can get the bag before it is gone. And I think, you know, there is, as I say, there is a motivation for us to develop systems that where actually this kind of communication would happen in real time. So thank you, audience. The next one, please. Okay, so this one is where we actually put in the shoes of train operating companies with having passengers who need assistance turning up at unstaffed stations without any advance notice. And we want to avoid the delays and inconvenience for passengers. So 6 of us insist that passenger would need to request for assistance in advance before they arrive at the station. I think that is a sensible option, but I think, you know, personally, I think because we always aspire for giving accessibility to all and makes the station easy for all, and for disabled passengers to have to book in advance, I think probably that would put them at some disadvantage, because in comparison to other passengers, they can just turn up and they can just get on the train. And these passengers would have to remember about the booking. So I think that probably would put them at a little bit of disadvantage. And also some passengers might have situations like dementia, which may not allow them to be able to remember to book in advance. One of us actually chose send staff to all non-staff stations to avoid situations. I think that would be a dream scenario, really, if we have enough resources. And yes, that is okay. So if we can somehow have all of the stations that are manned, I think it would be a lot better for passengers. But for many large train operating companies, as you know, it actually may be out of the question, because they have too many stations and I think not enough staff. So I think that's why 88% of us actually chose the third option. We basically just give that passenger a facility at the station to be able to send assistance requests directly and immediately to the onboard conductor or guard, so that they at least they have some notice in advance to be able to prepare, say to prepare a rampway, or at least to be able to notify the passengers they need to wait here or there to be able to receive the assistance. So I think that is a very sensible option. And again, that is the motivation for us to develop a system like this. It is also the motivation for us to do the next pilot for this as well. And I think that also links to the feedback from Merseyrail. Unfortunately, I don't think Merseyrail colleague is able to be here. I think they are still very busy. So maybe after the Q&A, maybe Adam, you could read out the statement. But for now, probably let us hand it over to Liz to go to her poll.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Tan. Yes, interesting. 44% still very worried about COVID and cautious, wanting to wear masks all the time. 38% somewhere in the middle, and 20% or 19% frustrated and perhaps wanting to get back to normal. Well, I think we all want to get back to normal, but it's a question of how we do that moving forward. Okay, that's fantastic. Thank you. Next one. Okay, lovely. Plan to travel to London. Are you going to use a service that is quick and busy, or cheaper and not so busy, but less available, less convenient in terms of time? quite close, 60-40. And that I chose London specifically as the destination because one of the outcomings from Kat's research was that people are less likely to switch in London. There's a geographical element to switching, which is very interesting. Fab. So I think that's everything from me. You wanted to read Chris's statement? Is that right?
Yeah, I'll just read it through. So Chris has been our Merseyrail partner. Unfortunately couldn't make it today, but he did send us this statement for you. So it says, myself and the team at Merseyrail have been assisting LJMU develop a number of projects in recent years, but Iris is the first where our frontline staff would directly benefit. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, it's been really difficult product to trial due to significantly lower passenger numbers, staff being hesitant to passing around equipment, and due to the fact that we're running at a 97.47% performance score, this has meant that we've not seen the true impact the software could have just yet. However, I do believe the benefits Iris could bring, I do believe the benefits Iris bring could absolutely improve many aspects of our network. Historically, Merseyrail has always performed exceptionally well in regards to national rail and passenger surveys. We've also always had a dip around how we manage disruption, especially around getting information to our frontline staff quickly. This is an area where Iris could impact us. Frontline staff will now have the ability to access live train running information, as well as a detailed disruption updates anywhere on the station. Not only has this assisted us in passing on relevant and up-to-date information to our passengers, but has also meant that our control room will not be taking numerous duplicate phone calls when staff asking for the same information whilst they're dealing with the disruption themselves. Currently, we have a generic CIS board on our platforms, which provides the basic information of destination, calling stations, and times. Iris can give our staff all of the above, along with the additional features such as live tracking of our trains, number of coaches, and as mentioned before, updates on instance. This again means our staff are much more prepared when waiting for the next arrival. Whilst developing the software, LJMU have also integrated some internal processes such as Eyewitness, which is our internal reporting process for any issues in our network, such as antisocial behavior. This gives our staff the ability to alert our security teams to any issue, where in the past they would have had to go and find a computer to report it as an email. But one of the main features of Iris is around passenger assist. Currently at Merseyrail, we carry out 95% of passenger assist who turn up and go on a turn up and go policy. The current process is staff will call the station the customer would like to alight at and pass on general information around the train the customer will board, what doors they will be on, and if they have any special requirements. All in all, it's quite a lengthy process with potential for mistakes. Iris, however, has simplified this process in that our staff now only have to press a couple of buttons and the same request is sent direct to the alighting station, who will get an audible alarm to notify them. It's then as easy as pressing a single button to confirm receipt of the assist. The next stage of development for us would be to integrate the last 5% who pre-book into the system, either by gaining access to the main passenger assist database or by giving passengers access to book themselves directly through the app. Thank you.
Fantastic. Sounds like it's really delivering some good value. So we have not been as punctual as Grant Shapps would like. We're slightly over, but thank you very much, everybody who's presented today, and for our audience for your time. As ever, if you have any questions, please do get in touch with any of us. And I'll just leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for attending.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Mhm.